Hey everyone, so this is an introduction to the online physics course, and I want to show you a bunch of the different programs you'll need to access so you can be successful in the class. So the first thing is a Gmail account, and most of you already have this, but I'm going to show you some things within this as well that you'll need to be able to do, mostly with Google Drive. So hopefully so far this is all familiar to you, logging in, things like that. Excuse the background noise. So we're going to go to Drive. If you didn't know, this little button up here contains all of the Google apps. You go to Drive. There's also all these other ones, but Drive is the most important because you can get to all the Google apps from there. Something that you're going to want to do right away is create a new folder. And this folder is going to contain pretty much all of your written assignments and any other documents that you'll need to hand in to me. So how we're going to name that is just OLP underscore your last name and then your first name, and make sure you capitalize your first initial right there. So we'll create that, and the way that you're going to share that with me is you're just going to right click on it. You're going to go to this share button, not the shareable link but the plus share button, and you're simply going to write mcnair@dls.org. You're going to make sure that I have editing privileges, not view only. It should be editing. So after you do that, you can press send. I'm going to press cancel because I'm sending this to myself, and I'll be able to access essentially everything inside this folder. So if there's ever anything that you need to turn in, you can just place that inside that folder and I will have direct access to it. So anytime you begin working on something, you can just start it in there and you should be good to go. Another thing I want to talk about is just Google Docs. This will be your primary document editing software. You can use Microsoft Word if you want, but Google Docs is also sufficient. So if you want to create something, you just go inside the folder. You can right click, press Google Docs, or you can go to new, right click, Google Docs. There we go. So we create this. First thing you want to do is title it. So it's just gonna be a test file. And pretty much everything that's here, you don't have to change. When you access or when you begin doing a writing assignment, I'll actually have a header that you can copy and paste and you can just fill in your information. So that should be pretty easy. Some things that might be helpful for you here is there are a bunch of different mathematical functions that you can use. So they have like an equation editor that you can access. They have basically just a bunch of different things that you can kind of just explore on your own and should be fine. So that's all I really want to show you with Google Docs. If you ever have any questions on it, feel free to just send me an email or anything like that. So yeah, Google Docs. The other thing that's really important is being able to access my Google Forms, which is the primary way that I do quizzes and tests and labs and just things like that. So you're always going to have to sign in. So luckily I'm already kind of signed in. So again, sorry for the background noise. First and last name, that'll always be there. Email address will always be there. This one has a video attached to it, and then you can go through and answer all these questions. Press submit. The usual way that I do these quizzes is if it's an exam or a quiz, you usually get one time to submit it. Or actually, not one chance, but you get into a certain time limit. Once that time limit passes, I actually close this and you won't be able to access it again. So please make sure you submit it. If you are worried about losing your work, I always leave these open. So you'll actually be able to not finish it all, press submit, right? This one specifically might not be that way because I have all these required things. But then after that, you should be able to go back into back into your what you edited, and anything you submitted that gets saved. So if you're ever worried about saving, just press submit at that point, and then that'll all save, and you can go back and change it if you want. So that's really it for Google Forms. Oh, actually, the last thing is answering numerical questions. So this one says, why do you think many people believe that astrology can correctly predict the outcomes and circumstances of their lives? This is a very qualitative answer, right? You just kind of write what you say, write what you mean, and explain it. But you might get some questions that are like, what is 5 plus 3.2? And maybe this has units attached to it. Maybe it's like meters plus 3.2 meters. When you get questions like this in the answer box, you never want to have units. The way that mine grades, it doesn't have to be the exact answer, but it just has to be only numerical. So if you're to answer this, as long as you put 8.2, that would be fine. And I allow for some variations. So if you're doing something very complicated, you might get, some students might get 8.35, some students might get 8.1 or something like that. And usually that range, as long as you're close enough, you should be fine. And that's really the main thing with Google Forms. Any of these numerical answers, just make sure you don't have units attached to it, or else it's gonna auto-grade as wrong, and I might miss that. Other than that though, these are pretty straightforward. Sometimes they're complicated, sometimes they're simple. The next thing is, actually, let's go to physics aviary. So this is gonna be the primary place that I do my labs, my online labs. So there's a bunch of these nice little programs. We'll probably do lab simulations most of the time. One of the first ones actually looks like, skip it, I think it is this one. And so you'll have to learn how to interact with these things. Usually I might provide a video, or just within the lab I'll tell you to do something so you can understand how it works. But just keep that in mind, physicsaviary.com, that's gonna be an important one to know. Another one is the book, or at least the text that we'll be following most of the time, is this physics classroom. So many of you, if you're navigating there for the first time, you'll reach the screen. Most of the time I'll have the direct link, but for us, usually it's physics classroom tutorials. Sometimes we do interactives, and sometimes we do multimedia physics. So the first chapter is 1D kinematics. You're actually going to have to read lesson 1, 5, and 6. And honestly, there can be a lot of reading, right? There's a lot here, a lot of different things. But this one, really specifically for this section, this is more just like practice problems, like explaining it verbally. Kinematic equations can be something you'll need to memorize. Yeah, the reading can be sometimes extensive. And so since this is an online class, the hope is that you take it, you do it over time. Let's go to the website. So mcnairscience.weebly.com. This is important to remember. So everything's going to be run on here. When you first navigate to the website, you may not see this online physics. I actually just made it open just for this video. But more likely than not, you should see something here. This website's going to be subject to change, especially this landing page. It's pretty ugly. Probably going to change that. But from here, you'll be able to access all of the content. More likely than not, you'll rarely even go to this page, but you'll probably go to these. So these are the chapters we covered last year. This year, we're probably going to go much more, not in depth, but in breadth, right? We're going to cover a lot of different topics. So first one looks like this. Later on, you'll see that you might get something that looks like this. We have checkpoints. Depending on how you do, how the class does in keeping up with things, if grades start dropping, I start setting up checkpoints. But for now, I'll probably just set a final due date for the exam. And once that due date happens, all your work will be due. So just make sure you get that done as soon as possible. Other than that, you can click on things. So if I go to lecture, it shoots me to YouTube. If I go to response questions, that's a Google form, right? Notice, right, woman runs up the stairs, she gains 500 joules of energy and gets up the stairs in 10 seconds. How much power does she exert? Well, power is 500, it's work, 500 joules divided by time. This actually just ends up being 500 divided by 10, which is 50, right? Notice I'm not putting watts, which is the unit, I'm just leaving it as 50. Not only that, notice that I can submit this. Oh wait, let me put this necessary information first. If I submit this, it's like, cool, you're good. But now I can go back and notice that 50 I put in, it's still there. So it saves. So you can come back to it later if you're not really sure. As long as you're finishing it before the due date, that's all that matters. So we can leave here. We don't care about this. This is also pretty subject to change. I can actually show you a little bit of what it might look like. More likely than not, the website's going to be closer to looking like something like this. Every chapter will look relatively the same. You'll have a writing assignment, a video, a reading assignment, maybe some practice, a lab, and then a photo collage, which I'll talk more about when we get there. But it's basically you take a photo, you write about it. And once you finish those 6 things, you will be able to take the exam. Again, the exam is timed. This one was October 3rd, but ours will probably be maybe a little bit sooner. There's also extra credit video labs, so you may not know how to make a video, but it's worth it to learn. This has curved the grades of many of my students, and they're due anytime. So even if we're on the last day before the semester ends, you can still turn them in. So other than that, though, that's a fairly good introduction to everything that you'll be seeing in physics, online physics at least. You won't see me much unless you need to talk to me. If you ever have any questions, definitely just email me. But that's all. So hope that wasn't too overwhelming. But yeah, hope all of you have a good rest of your day, and hopefully this class is enjoyable for you.